As genealogists, we spend a lot of time dealing with the departed or chasing ghosts. But sometimes we need to find the living, and that can be more difficult than finding the dead. Remember, respect people's privacy and avoid being all stalkerish when searching for people online. There's a long list of reasons for trying to find the living. My biggest need is usually trying to find the biological parents for an adoptee. Other situations include trying to return an artifact, like a photo or a piece of art, or trying to locate an estranged sibling. Most of the time, you don't even know the name of the person that's alive. You're going to need to use your genealogy skills to get you there. In the internet age, it's incredibly easy to find anyone online, unless they've gone to great lengths to stay hidden. If you know their name, maybe all you need to do is search Google or social media. But what if you don't know their name? Let's look at how we get that starting name. In the case of adoptees, you don't have any names. You need to work through the process of reviewing DNA matches to find a set of common ancestors. This will at least give you a surname or two. Check out my tech tidbit on finding biofamilies. You might have someone's family Bible, photograph, or artwork, and each one of those will potentially come with a name, but who are they? Where was the photo taken? Are there other names in that family Bible? Eventually, you narrow it down so it's not just a name, but it's also an identity that you can then search. Perhaps you have an in-law that's ill, and you only know her by her married name. Who is she really? How do you contact her family? For Auntie, you're going to have to work backwards first before you can work forward. In many cases, you're going to have to traverse family trees back and forth. There's going to be dead ends where there are lines where there is no children, and there's going to be lines that you can't find at all. Let's look at some examples. Say you've got a photo with a name. Who is this person? Is there more information that'll help you identify who they are? Does the photo have the studio and location? In this case, the photo has an embossed area with the studio name. Oh, look, I think I just found Wolverine's grandfather. My wife inherited a ton of photos from her grandmother. Some of these photos were high school friends from over 100 years ago. Bertha L. Brown's photo was part of this group. Now, we could throw away the photo, or we could find one of Bertha's descendants. The photo has no meaning to us, but it may be invaluable to one of Bertha's relatives. I had a name. I knew by association a location, Dedham, Massachusetts, and a graduation class of 1912. There was even an extra clue on the back of the photo. The name Mrs. Edmund was penciled in later. Easy peasy, right? Since we're talking about dates that are pre-1950, I started with Ancestry and census records. I quickly found Bertha and her parents on the 1920 census in Dedham. The 1920 census then provided a hint to the 1930 census. In 1930, Bertha is 37 years old, and there's no sign of Mr. Edmund or any children. This could all be a dead end. Some of my hints for Bertha pointed to records for a Bertha Sebio. I then find Bertha Sebio on the 1940 census with a daughter, Louise. Then other records pointed to a newspaper article for Louise's marriage. We then leapfrog again to the obituary for Louise's husband, which provides another generation and hometowns. The final step would be to find an email address or a telephone number so that I can make contact. If I'm lucky, I can use Google and find one of the names in an obit. But there are dozens of people search or social media sites where I can also find the names. There is no such thing as privacy anymore. Just going about our everyday lives leaves a footprint of our existence. So, it was easy to find Bertha's granddaughter Laura and her telephone number. Now all I need to do is call Laura and explain who I am and why I'm calling, and find out if she'd like a graduation photo of her grandmother. In a nutshell, work from the census forward. Fill in the middle with marriages, obituary, and other online records. The final step is to connect with people search sites or social media sites. But what if all you've got is the person's name? Many times you'll have a great DNA match with no family tree. You try to contact the user through the DNA website, but get no answer. You could try to reverse the people search process. Hopefully their name isn't John Smith. I like it when the person I'm searching for has a unique name, or I have at least one clue to help me differentiate them from all the other John Smiths. Now, if I find them on social media, I'll check their friends, and maybe I'll find a generation back or a maiden name. Or if I find them on a people search site, often I'll find their maiden name and relatives. And if I'm lucky on a people search site, I'll also find email address and telephone number. Recently, my uncle's wife fell ill, and I offered to help find her estranged sister. All I knew was her married name and where they lived. Sometimes that's enough to get started. I did a quick Google search of my aunt's name and town. My hope was that I'd get a people search site with some aliases. I knew she'd been married before, and on the search site that I found, it had the surnames Sargent and Moran. It also had previous addresses for her. The key was when I found her name associated with the obituary of Maud Breslin, her mother. Also in the obit were the names of my aunt's two sisters, one of which had passed away already in 2006. Now, just to be certain, I searched for and found the 1950 census with everyone in it to tie everything together, and to get the birth date of the surviving sister, Donna. And then based on her mother's obit, I should be able to find Donna Breslin in Londonderry, New Hampshire. A quick Google search showed me that Donna had passed away in 2020. I informed my uncle's family that there was no one left on my aunt's side of the family. Not all people searches are going to have happy endings. When starting your search with just a name, work from people search sites and social media backwards. Then fill in the middle with obituaries, marriages, and other online records. The final step is to connect to a census record, which will then allow you to go back in time, decades. How do you tell someone they have a non-parental event in their family? Gently, if possible. If that person's an adoptee, they probably already know that they're part of an event. For every adoptee, there's a family or two who may not even know that the event took place. In the case of Hanky Panky, the child of that infidelity may not even know. I find I need to lead people to the conclusion for themselves. In the case where someone has asked me to find more information about their grandfather using DNA, I might find that there's no genetic connection to that grandfather. I'll start with, you have no DNA matches with those surnames. Then let that sink in. Or if I'm talking to an adoptee's bio family, I'll say, I'm working with an adoptee with a very strong DNA connection to your family. Then let that sink in. Give them time to get there. Let them ask the next question. No matter how gently you proceed, there'll always be people who just don't get it, who don't want to accept the facts. But there'll be even more family who will be overjoyed by the answers. When contacting the living, remember to respect a person's privacy and explain who you are to put them at ease. There are way too many scams out there. And if you're delivering non-parental or bad news, remember, be careful and be gentle. So now you should be able to go from your ancestors to the living, and from the living back to their ancestors. Why don't you try practicing by looking up an old friend from high school, or look yourself up. You'd be surprised how much of your life is public.